Alpha's fourth Essential Economy webinar. So we're really glad you're all here. We've got a lot of friends. I recognize a lot of friends on the phone from around the globe. Thank you so much. Hi, Chris from London. Hi, Sebastiano. Thanks for your participation in our last co-investment. Finally, we got something done together. Thank you so much. Here's Robert from Brussels, and thank you all for being here. We're going to get started because we have a really packed webinar today. In this webinar on the essential economy, we put a focus on enterprise. And we've got two excellent early stage VC funds here presenting Creative Ventures and ArchEPC, who have brought two of their fastest growing companies to present along with them, Sense Photonics in computer vision and Concert in enterprise software. So I'm going to tell you just a few words about the webinar format and about Alpha, and then I'm going to leave it to these experts to speak to you. We're going to try something different today. After each of the experts, the two VCs and their CEOs, give their 5 to 6 minute talks, rather than just have a panel with questions, we're going to do breakout rooms. And you're going to be assigned randomly to a breakout room with one of us for about 10, 12 minutes. And if you don't get into a breakout room with the person you want, just leave the room and Dan, our host, will put you into a new room. You just tell him through chat what room you want to be in. But please just only go to one room. If you're not in the room you want initially, just come out to the main room. So this gives you a chance to have a little more live Q&A, to get unmuted, to ask real questions, to get to know these folks, depending on your interests. So we hope that generates some great conversation. Then we'll come back to the main room. Each of our guests will moderate these breakout rooms, and they may have 1 or 2 observations from them, which they will share. So why do we do this? Well, we believe that tech is an insulation against the current recessionary and pandemic environment. And we see this showing up in the markets. But it's likewise showing up in private companies. And we think private disruptive companies that are providing services in the essential economy are going to thrive. And so we're in the hunt for VCs that produce these companies with their capital and aid them, and great CEOs like Sanj and Shauna who are here with us today. Alpha is a growth fund. We don't invest in early stage. We invest when these great VCs companies get to the growth round, and we share economics on their growth rounds in their great companies. And so that's why we like to feature our VC friends. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce one of our VC friends, Alex Luce from Creative Ventures, speaking to us from Berkeley, California. Please welcome Alex of Creative Ventures.
Great, thanks Brian very much for the introduction, and I'm going to start a screen share here.
You guys are welcome to ask questions in chat and to chat with each other. I'm going on mute.
All right, Brian, can you confirm that you can see my screen here?
Yeah, Alex, we can see it.
Thanks. Deep Tech Venture Capital Fund. We believe in achieving consistent and repeatable return in our investments. And I'm going to tell you a little bit how we do that, some areas that we're focusing on now in the essential economy, and then turn it over to one of our amazing portfolio companies, Sense Photonics. So how are we different? There are 3 axes of return that we think about. One is being very systematic in how we operate. So we have in place repeatable processes to generate insights, to enable us to make investments, conduct research, to really have information that we need to be able to make better decisions over time and have testable rules to be able to do that. We have a US and global strategy where we work with our companies to think about global expansion when necessary and help them in reducing execution risk as they grow. And finally, we have a feedback loop. So we iteratively test our outcomes, our investment process at every stage of operation instead of just waiting until we have exits. So we're focused on deep tech, and we really think that that's a great way to address some of the opportunities in the essential economy in the enterprise space. Some of the main themes that we're focused on are addressing labor shortages, and that's been technologies such as artificial intelligence, robotics. We have companies in the construction sector, food automation, Sense Photonics with sensors. We're also focused on healthcare, have companies building better ultrasound for diagnostics, have companies doing biomarker innovation, and we're also focused on climate change. And that's things like breakthrough materials for sustainable packaging, synthetic biology, building better batteries, things like that. So I'll just touch on two themes that we're focused on right now. One is healthcare, and due to COVID and otherwise, we're really interested in point of care diagnostics, remote care, and addressing mental health. And I'll share these slides so I don't have to spend a lot of time reading them, but these are just some opportunities we're currently focused on and investing into. And another area is in logistics and automation. And we really see a lot of opportunity right now in warehousing and logistics automation, in autonomy, both from a labor angle and also for safety and productivity, in packaging and in food production. So that actually leads me into a brief introduction to Sense Photonics, which is a company building low-cost LiDAR and 3D scanners. They are addressing opportunities in the automotive and industrial sector, including things like autonomous vehicles, driver safety, robotics, material handling. They have a solid-state flash LiDAR that has amazing cost, reliability, ease of manufacturing metrics. So with that, I'll actually turn it over to Shauna to tell you a little bit more about Sense Photonics.
So I'm Shauna McIntyre. I am the CEO of Sense Photonics. I joined the company almost 3 months ago from Google, where at Google I was running the automotive services programs, which was across multiple parts of Google to bring embedded software into the vehicle. Before that at Google, I had been in the consumer electronics business as chief of staff and bringing new consumer experiences to market enabled by the hardware that we were providing. Taking a step back though, my career started at a Ford plant. I was instituting new lean manufacturing processes, putting in automation, kind of the first round of robotics into automotive manufacturing. Later headed up product and engineering for one of the largest tier ones into both automotive and industrial spaces, Honeywell Garrett turbochargers. And then decided at that point in time that hardware for hardware itself is GDP growth. It's not going to break open and create a lot of value. What's the value is being created is in the consumer experience and in the software AI. And so that's when I pivoted my career. Common thread here in my career is that I, as a mechanical engineer, have always focused on hardware, but increasingly so that hardware has to be that gateway to new incredible experiences. So that's where we are today. Sense Photonics creates intelligent vision systems. As we look in the world today, automotive, trucking, farming, industrial, there are so many use cases that are being transformed by the requirement and the need for new experiences, from the new cockpit of a Tesla to precision farming to increase yield and improving the robotics as it was applied to farming, removing the driver in mining to save $1 million per truck per year and enable faster, more productivity in mining, and then also in places like warehousing and improving the security and safety systems that we have. So all of these experiences are being transformed. And what's happening is that the user is at the core, and the user is getting these new experiences enabled by software. But then that places the requirement of hardware to not just be hardware, but really to be that open, intelligent gateway to enable all these new experiences. Let's take an example. The Apollo 11 cockpit at its time was novel and innovative. Today, it's vastly different. The SpaceX puts the astronaut at the core and develops things around that experiences. Companies are taking a lot of the cash from their balance sheets and applying it toward these new experiences, or toward these new technologies to enable new experiences, such as Intel's purchase of Mobileye. GM was one of the first automakers to plunk $1 billion into a tech company. And then most recently, VW with its $2.6 billion investment into Argo for autonomous vehicles. And what these autonomous systems and these robotic systems need is they need to know where they are in the world, and they need to know where they are relative to everything else in the world. And so this requires not just localization through something like GPS, but also effective vision systems to enable them to operate in and around themselves. Then this opens up so many opportunities for edge computing, continuous learning through ML and AI, and then of course the analysis of all the data that it extracts. This unlocks outstanding opportunities, especially in today's world. We need to distance our workers. We need safer driving. We need more productivity out of our warehouses and our plants. And by far and large, we have to clean up the environment and have solutions that will clean it up. And that's where we come in. Sense Photonics, we make intelligent vision systems that enable transformative new experiences. Our vision systems provide 10x the amount of data density to the customer's vision stack, perception stack, than any other competitor. We do it without any moving parts. It's a camera-like architecture, and it's a fraction of the cost, 1/10 of the cost of our competitors. And this is how you scale in automotive. Having come from that world and having come from the industrial world of the very challenging environments, it has to be cost-effective, deployable, and high-performing all at the same time. So I joined a few months ago, as I mentioned, and I joined an outstanding team. Scott Burrows is a longtime serial entrepreneur, expert in fiber electronics, optoelectronics. Hope Finkelstein, the first to launch a SPAD detector back into biotech, the biotech space. And then Sukesh comes from a deep background in software and AI. Our products are available today. Our Sense One is the longest range industrial use camera today. Osprey is launching as I speak for industrial and automotive applications. It's a modular design for easier packaging. And then we're excited about the early results we have from our Osprey X, which will be a first long-range flash LiDAR. That's quite exciting, and we're excited about what we've demonstrated thus far. As I mentioned, it's a simple architecture. The VCSEL array, which is this microarray on that substrate there, it's a simple stamping process. It's a micro transfer printing process that has been validated already. And then it's a very simple flash LiDAR, flash camera like LiDAR. Picture says 1,000 words. This one has 10,000 or 10x richer data than our nearest competitor. We have a larger vertical field of view, which is particularly good in industrial settings, and it's just a richer picture with much more consistent data throughout. We're already making traction with great companies around the world, from robotics, online retail, security, industrial use cases, and then automotive and trucking. A case study here is one of my favorites, and that, because I've spent a lot of time in trucking. Truck idling is one of the worst offenders to the environment. So how do you reduce it? Well, you can make your ports and your warehouses and bays smarter. So just like when you're waiting on an airplane and you're waiting for that gate, well, this is the same thing for a truck. So rather than the truck idling and pumping out CO2 and nitric oxides and particulate matter into the environment, you can smoothly transition these trucks in and out of their bays, both for a unit on the side of the building for monitoring the trucks, but also on the truck itself. So we're getting great traction on both sides to improve ports, clean them up, and to improve the throughput of our warehouses. And so we're here to raise $40 million for our Series B. We want to ship our near-field products and scale and expand our sales into these exciting industrial use cases. We want to complete our automotive offering, which is the long-range single photon avalanche detector at 200 meters plus. We want to deliver on programs and launch with automotive and industrial, and then we want to scale with our strategic partners. So thanks so much. I look forward to meeting you in the breakout room.
Okay, I was on mute, but if anyone noticed, probably not, I said wow when I saw the difference between Shauna's competitors and Sense's LiDAR imagery. Thank you so much, Shauna.
My pleasure.
Okay, so we got 2 more coming, and then we're going to go into the breakout rooms, and then we're going to come back together. We really encourage audience participation. We realize we have many accomplished family offices and LPs and operators in the room who should be contributing to the conversation live and not just in chat. So we look forward to seeing you in the breakout rooms. Again, when we go into the breakout rooms, if you want to be in a different room, just come out to the main room. You can go into a different room. Dan Stolar will assign you. So now it's my pleasure to introduce New Yorker, Gyan Kapoor, who happens to have the Golden Gate Bridge behind him. And I don't blame him because we all spend a significant amount of time in the Bay Area where Alex and Shauna are located. This is great because it's a cross-country event. Gyan, please tell us about RTPC and then introduce Sanj and Concert.
Awesome. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the fund, but more than that, I'm just going to tell you about what we're seeing in the world a little bit. Let me see if I can. Do you guys see this in full screen, or are you?
Yep, yeah, we do.
Cool, perfect. So we're a $30 million fund. We do really early stage investing. We do B2B. We have a slight preference for non-San Francisco, just given valuation. Let's see. One sec. I'm having trouble going from slide to slide. I'll just go to the next one. We focus on a bunch of different stuff, but it's pretty much all bread and butter B2B. We do a lot of digital health, a lot of DevOps, fintech, SaaS. We look at a lot of fun stuff that really has become bread and butter over the last 5 to 7 years for VCs, and we don't really do much consumer. And I think in the world over the last 4 months with COVID, you probably have seen everybody in the world is kind of talking about collaboration. We invested in RingCentral in a mid to late stage financing, but Zoom stock's gone up 4x, Slack stock's gone up 4x. So obviously collaboration has become a big thing in this COVID world and everybody knows about it. But at the same time, I think there's a lot more going on in the world. And for us, we think a lot about I guess what you would call enterprise infrastructure and how it applies. And in this world where everybody is using the internet, we have issues where people can't get access to bandwidth, where website response is very slow, and it just causes terrible user experience. And as a result of those really issues, you're seeing some nice growth in enterprise infrastructure companies. So we led the Series A in Datadog. That company's worth about $25 billion now. It's 3x in the last roughly 5 months. PagerDuty's doubled from its lows in kind of March, also an enterprise infrastructure business. And it's pretty clear that these picks and shovels are just going to continue to boom over the next couple of years. Oh, I don't know why I went back. And what's the reason for this effectively is that cloud is just growing like crazy. Many of you are probably aware of this, but its growth is exponential. It drives a lot of AWS's really contribution margin, or Amazon's contribution margin. It's massive. SaaS is also growing like crazy and has become a big spend source for every employer. But what's interesting is that at the top end of the market, SaaS is actually smaller. So you kind of see that for companies that have above 1,300 employees or above 2,000 employees, average SaaS spend per employee is much lower. So there's a lot of headroom still left for software, whether it's data center and infrastructure or software and software as a service to kind of penetrate the top of the market. And it's going to continue to happen. People are talking about this, like Aaron Levy at Box is saying, as a result of COVID, all these employers are really focusing more on cloud. Microsoft's seeing the same thing, where all of a sudden everybody is super, super interested in infrastructure and cloud, and because they need to adopt this stuff when people are at home. So what does that mean for us? I think we're focusing less on kind of what the bread and butter was for venture capital over the last, or many venture funds over the last 5 to 10 years. I think we've all seen a lot of restaurant tech, micro mobility, real estate tech was really hot. And we're also focusing less on, I guess, what people would call the red ocean hot spaces that are clearly accelerated by COVID. Things like telehealth, e-commerce enablement. E-commerce is obviously booming, but it's a little bit late. And instead, we're spending more time on, I guess, what we think the true tailwinds are going to be, which is enterprise infrastructure, things like SaaS sales and things and technology to help software as a service companies grow. And Sandra will be talking about that. Payments infrastructure, digital health that's not telehealth, the automation of manufacturing, which is probably a byproduct of reducing labor in factories, and then robotic process automation in companies. All that said, like every venture fund, I think we have to stay nimble. And this is just a quote by Doug Leone at Sequoia, who says, we all have our themes, we all have what we think we're interested in, but the reality is, as investors in particular, we just listen, and we listen to meet compelling entrepreneurs who present us with a compelling vision. And that's kind of what Sanj is. So I'm going to leave it to Sanj in a second, but effectively, his company is called Concert Finance. It really helps salespeople with two things: calculating commissions, and then with some of the regulatory tailwinds of ASC. And Sanj is just a world-class domain expert CEO who's really built a following in the space. He has reference customers, and I'm excited to let him talk about what he's doing.
Cool, thanks, Gian. Pull up now. Great. Well, thank you all for your time and for joining. I'm Sanj Sanaputi, co-founder and CEO of Concert. We're a smarter sales commission software that gives sales reps real-time tracking on how they're performing. And also, we help admins create compensation plans that motivate their sales teams to perform better. My background is I used to be a CFO before this. And I think, like many CFOs and maybe many of you, I was really skeptical about kind of the world of commissions and how much sales reps were really making and kind of how to make the sort of SaaS customer acquisition math work. And, you know, I think that attitude has really taken us to like the pre-COVID world of 50% of sales teams reaching quota, but also 50% of sales teams not reaching quota. And this graph kind of ends at 2016. The most recent data from 2019 says that now about 53% of reps are attaining quota, yay. But that's kind of on the heels of massive companies like Salesloft or Outreach or Gong, which enable sales teams at really high price points. So what we're seeing is teams are performing mildly better, but not a lot better. And our work in this space has led us to understand the neuroscience and the psychology behind compensation and how we can get reps to perform better. So there's 50% of teams that aren't performing, terrible stat. And of course, COVID makes it worse. So kind of the first thing that makes this a lot harder is that work from home is the new normal. And I think many of you, if you have roommates or pets or spouses or children, it is impossible to work in the same way that you used to. The second is that uncertainty has kind of this paralyzing effect on people. So uncertainty in work for a sales rep is pipeline stats have decreased substantially, that sales processes have changed because customers are expecting new steps and new information along the way, and that sales cycles have lengthened. And in general, you kind of don't know what's happening with the world. Like, am I going to get sick? Is everyone I love going to get sick? That results in decreased motivation. And then finally, what we've seen recently is a number of enterprises have reduced their sales teams or their go-to-market teams. So individuals now need to perform even better to hit those same company targets. We talk to dozens of companies every week. No one has actually moved off of their full year targets. Yet most of the companies we've talked to have reduced their go-to-market teams, whether in marketing or sales, by about a third. So how does that math work out when half your team is still missing targets? So that's why we built this idea of smarter targets. What we owe our reps to do their best work is more focus and more motivation. And if we give that to our reps, we know that we can get them to perform better. And we see this kind of in the real world, very simply in marathons. So if any of you are runners, aspirational runners, on the right side, you'll see a graph of marathon finish times. And on the y-axis, you'll see how many finishers there were. And the blue lines represent sort of pace setter times. So someone running in front of you with a sign saying like, okay, if you beat me, you're going to beat 4 hours. And what you'll see is this performance graph is multimodal. And the real insight that we get from psychology here is that people are wired to hit targets. It's not like you have to like generate some external motivation for folks. People actually want to engage with those targets, but only if they're meaningful. So you'll see the most common marathon finish time is 3 hours and 59 minutes. And when you get to 4 hours and 1 minute, there's a 40% drop in performance. That means those people are no longer engaged with the target and don't care about performing better. So really, when we look at this graph again, what you're seeing is that 50% of sales teams are fundamentally not engaged. So how do we change that? Well, first, we put out the pace setters. We put out the runners with the 4-hour sign. So we need to give real-time tracking to sales reps so they know how they're doing against their own goals. And the second thing is we need smarter, more motivating targets. So how do we even know that 4 hours is the right time to send out a pace setter for? And that kind of basic insight helps us understand why we think about commissions incorrectly to begin with. Commissions really operate as a feedback loop, which answers 3 fundamental questions. Where am I going? How do I get there? And based on where I am, where do I go next? The old attitude towards commissions is really focused on that final stage, closing the loop. If you make more money, you'll perform better. The new attitude towards commissions is this is the source of focus and motivation. This is how people actually work. We are target driven. So this isn't just kind of like squishy stuff. Remember, I'm a CFO. Like I kind of hate when people talk to me about focus and motivation without like numbers and math. So first, smarter targets physiologically impact us. Our heart rates increase when we have a target that is moderately challenging. That means we are ready to act. Second, smarter targets activate the neural pathways that control learning. So smarter targets actually light up the same parts of our brains, whether or not we achieve the target, and prepare us to learn. And we've seen this in our own work. So we've worked with an enterprise SaaS company in New York. Their quotas were starting at about $50K a month. They had over 20 sales reps. Their average performance was $30K a month, and only one person was hitting quota. So, you know, if you've seen what we've done so far, we encouraged them to drop their quota. They agreed to drop quota by 15%. With a new quota of $42,500 a month per rep. Nothing else changed. No new management, no new training, no new products, no new pricing. And over the next 3 months, we saw performance on average increase to $34,500 a month. About 6 people reached quota just by dropping quota. And yeah, $4,500 a month doesn't sound that great, but that is actually more than $1 million of ARR that this company added by improving their targets. So the big idea here is find motivation and focus for your team. It's something I think we're all lacking in this world of too much news and spending too much time with our families. Thanks for your time, and look forward to the breakout rooms.
Great. Thanks so much, Sanj, and all our expert speakers today. You guys were on time and truly, at least for me, on target in bringing both your view on the essential economy and in the applications we see here in Sense and Concert. So I'm going to have 2 questions for you when we come back. So I'm going to cheat and let you think about those questions. The questions for both CEOs are going to be, give us an example of an early customer's ROI and what their payback is that you can share. And then how are you going to build a moat to outdistance competitors? Because clearly you're both operating in a big space where if there are not competitors already, as there are in computer vision and autonomous, there will be. So we'll come back for those questions when we get back. If you get assigned to a breakout room and you want to switch, you can switch once. We know a lot of people are just dial in to listen to us like a radio show, but we hope most of you will participate. So please go off mute if you want to be part of the conversation for the rest of our time together. We will end on time, and we will tell you how we're going to follow up at the top of the hour. So we'll be in breakout rooms now as guided by Dan, who's going to teleport us for about 14 minutes, and he'll give you a 2-minute warning, and each of the speakers will be a captain or moderator of the respective breakout rooms. We won't be offended if you need to switch. Thanks so much. See you in 15 minutes. I had a question going into the breakout rooms for Shauna and Sanj. I don't know if you remember my question, but it was, give us evidence by one real company. You don't have to name the company if you don't want, and the ROI they expect with your technology or already getting. That's my question. We always like to see this kind of consumer traction in companies like yours. And then in closing, if the 4 of you would just sort of summarize kind of any observations from the breakout room, we'll do that. And then I think then we got to close it up. For everyone on the call, we will share in email a link to the presentations today and contact information. And we have recorded the session in case any of you are interested in a segment or want to share a segment with a colleague. So Shauna, you're up.
Okay, I'm in the hot seat. All right, so ROI, there are a couple I would like to give. One is that, another example is in the plant, in the warehouse, all the little bits and bobs of inventory that go through a warehouse can spike to 12 parts per second. We have an 80% improvement in inventory counting accuracy over camera systems today. So at 12 parts per second, an 80% improvement it's an immediate opportunity when it comes to working capital and inventory in a plant. And so the throughput and efficiency gain from that is huge. The other is then in security, where we eliminate false positives. And so if you think about these huge real estate land masses where you have refineries and other areas, to eliminate false positives allows you to really streamline and improve your security force. So that would be my answer on that one.
Great. Cool. And Sanj, you have some customers today and they're already getting results. Can you either share the customer or the type of customer and where you think the early traction is?
Yeah, I think the early traction is around SaaS customers. So our customers who are taking our comp plan recommendations and the targets that we're setting, we see sort of clusters of performance around the targets that we're setting. So sort of like that marathon example where you see a multimodal graph. And kind of ROI for the customer, usually we're not super expensive. I guess that's bad on me for pricing, but customers see ROI within the first month or so of adopting a new plan.
Yeah, SaaS makes a lot of sense. I think you've got really good measurable lifetime value of customer, and contract value makes a lot of sense. And that's great. So Sanj, while we're on you, one question someone asked you, one observation from the breakout room that you wish you could share with everybody?
Yeah, I think the observation from our breakout room was mostly kind of bridging sort of how people think of commissions now as like the sort of tactical, like get out of spreadsheets, get ready for your audit problem. And that's how most of the world is thinking about it and bridging it. So it's sort of how do you educate more people on the impact that targets and commissions have on their teams.
Yeah, I think the full automation of commissions is just a real game changer. I hope you've fixed it. I look forward to having a company in our portfolio give it a shot. Thank you so much for coming today. So let's go on to your VC partner, Gian. You want to give us an observation from the breakout room? What question came up that you wish the whole group could understand or hear?
Yeah, I guess less no answer, but we did talk a lot about what red oceans kind of existed in these markets right now and what was kind of overbought as a result of COVID, and then simultaneously a little bit what was potentially under appreciated because of COVID. And
All right, so
we'll
give us
see
some
what
names. Give us some sectors that are non-red oceans that
I mean,
we
I
should be
think
thinking about.
one thing that I've been thinking about, but I don't have an answer for, is like what the future of kind of the restaurant tech world is going to look like. We're not really ready for it yet, or I'm not really ready to make an investment there yet, but it's an area where I think a thesis may form over time. Historically, it was a pretty attractive world to invest in over the last 3 to 5 years. And the question will be, first off, what percentage of restaurants come back, but then what enables them to compete against maybe these aggregators that have found some market dominance. And then also potentially what enables these new models that like ghost kitchens or cloud kitchens, maybe not from a services perspective, but from a technology perspective.
That's great. Thanks for that insight. Shauna, how about you from your breakout room, and then we'll finish on Alex.
Yeah, I appreciated a question that Chris asked actually about scope creep, right? And that's real. And that, you know, with vision systems, you think about, you could improve the intelligence of just about anything in the world, so you have to prioritize. And so, you know, there are opportunities in automotive, absolutely. Those are very long, those are longer term, take a lot longer. They're co-development type of efforts versus the industrial, which is here and now. We can put our boxes on a building for immediate security and for improving monitoring. So I appreciated that insight, and it gave me pause to think, okay, yes, we have some folks focusing on automotive, but our real bread and butter right here and now is in the industrial space. So, you know, we certainly won't keep our eye off that ball. That's a big one. So.
Yeah, I so agree. I'll just comment. I think, you know, so many technologies have come to market, whether it was the Apple Newton or Google Glass, that tried to go too broad too fast. And had they just focused on industrial verticals where they could have killed it and been a killer app, they would have gotten started on a better footing. And seems like that's what your company does, which I think makes your company very attractive. I think want to learn more, definitely. And so, Alex, let's finish up with you, and then I'll say goodbye to everybody.
Sure, yeah. One question we had come up towards the end, which I thought was pretty interesting, was the changing nature of work for folks who aren't normally in an office environment. For example, manufacturing, science, for companies or individuals who might need access to a lab or an assembly line. Like, how is that changing with regards to different types of collaboration, workforce productivity? Seemed to be a little bit of an open question. We had some examples from our portfolio. It sounded like a couple of the other investors present were thinking about this as well, as far as, you know, in some of these hard tech sectors where you're doing some sort of physical work, how does collaboration and work change due to some of the macro effects going on right now? So just sort of something interesting to think about and look at.
Absolutely. I think the changing nature of remote collaboration is very fertile right now. And let us know what you see. Keep us posted. So we're down to the last 30 seconds. For everyone who attended, thank you. We'll be doing this monthly through the summer and through the end of the year. It's been working well. We'll always have 2 expert VCs who will bring 2 of their most promising companies. Thanks for experimenting with us on the breakout format. I think we'll probably just do 2 breakout rooms next time. Any feedback at all for any of us, you'll be hearing from us in email. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. We welcome your attendance and your participation. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm sure many of you are friends of RTP and Creative, and of course, the many friends of Alpha. Everyone have a good summer. It's the first week of summer. Please enjoy your freedom. Panelists, please stay on. We're going to have a little quick recap, but Dan, you can teleport everyone out. Else out. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.